Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tactical Harmony. And today's guest, he is a friend, he is a former colleague, and he is a fellow brother in blue. Allow me to introduce Kurt Thomas. Kurt Thomas is a retired NCIS Special Agent and former Executive Assistant Director who dedicated over 31 years to military and civilian service at the highest levels. Kurt deployed and lived globally in support of the war on terrorism and U.S. interests, with his leadership leverage in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other overseas environments. For decades, he worked across local, state, federal, and international partners to strengthen leadership, innovation, and mission success in some of the most austere conditions imaginable. Beyond government service, Kurt is a successful entrepreneur and nonprofit founder, dedicated to supporting military members, first responders, and the disabled. He's built teams, businesses, and communities around one thing: positive outcomes for people, communities, and families. At his core, Kurt values God, family, and country. And he'll tell you his greatest accomplishment is not a title or a medal, but his family and his commitment to living with an outward mindset. Woo! Kurt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning. Honored to be here. Obviously, very big for you to have me on the show. Thank you.
Oh, gosh. I had this moment wash over me, Kurt, as I was thinking about our conversation. And just a few years ago, we were working investigations and operations and NCIS. And now here we are having a conversation on a podcast. And it really just kind of showcases the twists, the turns, the zigs, the zags that life has.
Absolutely. Again, it's an honor. I'm so happy to see where you've taken your career post NCIS, and hopefully one day I can accomplish some of the same great things you have because you're doing great things for the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, gosh, my heart is full. Okay. So, Kurt, you've lived a lot of life and you have served at the highest levels of NCIS. So, I could take this conversation in 100 different directions as it pertains to leadership, mindset, and performance. But I would love to start with a very personal, big moment that you experienced. And if you could walk us through that and how it changed you as a human and as a leader and really altered your trajectory.
Sure thing. So yeah, it's an emotional for me. I try not to get emotional. I talk about it, but it is pretty emotional. So I'll try and hold it together here. So I was always a fairly a pretty good special agent. I did my job, but I wasn't always an outward person. In other words, I focused on what was important to me in my career, what was important for me to achieve for me, my family, and those around me, those in my tribe, if you were. But I wasn't very outward in my mindset. In 2016, 2017, I moved back from overseas and ended up in the hospital in Virginia. I didn't know I was in the hospital. And when I woke up, I was headed into surgery. And my entire family was around me. In fact, there was a priest there that they had summoned who was giving me last rites because I wasn't expected to live. That, if you haven't gone through that, is it's cathartic. It's life changing. I remember saying a few words to my wife, unprepared, because I had no idea what was going on. I had a little bit of knowledge because the doctors had briefed me. And I remember telling my wife, I'll get through this. We're going to get through this. I love you. I've always been faithful to you, and I'll see you on the other side of this. They rolled me into surgery, and I remember praying, and I said, Hey, God, I don't think I'm a bad person, but if you let me survive this, I will spend the rest of my life thinking and looking outward towards other people and making sure that's the point of my life. Clearly, I survived that surgery. Clearly, I'm out of it. I had to spend several months in the hospital, had to learn to walk again, lots of physical therapy. And of course, once I survived, I quickly forgot that promise to God. However, God has a way of reminding you of things. And I had numerous stitches all over my body, sewed up from various things that were done. So I didn't want to be in the hospital any longer. They said, if you can walk from here to that flight of stairs and go up one stair, you can go home. I forced myself to do that and I got to go home. However, I had to go back to the hospital 3 or 4 times a week for a variety of issues. While we're driving down to the hospital, and this is probably 4 months after surgery, every bump on the road on the 95 nearly gutted me. I'm laying back in an F-50 with pillows around me to make the ride as comfortable as possible. And some people, as they did many times before, were honking at my wife who was driving. They would get around us and maybe throw something out at the car. And this is a normal procedure, going down 3, 4 times a week, driving slow in the slow lane. And I looked over at my wife, and she had, and this is really emotional for me, she had a single tear coming down her face. And I looked over at her and I said, "What's the matter, honey?" And she said, "If these people had any idea what is going on in this vehicle right now and who's in this vehicle right now, what you've gone through, they would be so ashamed of themselves." And that was God's reminder to me. It was like he punched me right in the face and he said, "Hey, that was you." And not that I would throw bottles out of the window, but I would get very aggravated if somebody was going slow, maybe honk at them, maybe speed around them, all of those things. And if you remember back to your college days, the Greek tragedies, peripeteia, that moment where Oedipus realizes that he's not quite the hero he believed he was, that hit me like a ton of bricks. And where I was at that point in my life, I was going to medically retire. My wife and I were going to buy 50 acres. We were going to build our dream house, and that was going to be it. And that moment woke me up because we had already gone down the path of buying some acreage. And we were on our way back from that trip. And I said, "Hey, our plan is not to retire. Our plan is not to build something for us. I made a promise to God, and we're going to stay true to that promise. And that promise is to get a piece of property and turn it out towards everybody else." Now, how that affected my leadership, and I think Mark said it when he was on your podcast a couple of days, mindset is everything.
Mhm.
And your habits define your culture, and your mindset and where your mindset goes is where you're going to go. So that changed my whole leadership paradigm, because once you realize, and my wife just saying, if these people knew what was going on in here, they'd be so ashamed of themselves. I became ashamed of myself because there are so many people that I treated like vehicles that I used to get someplace, obstacles that I had to go around to get what I wanted, or objects that I just ignored, that I didn't care about. I didn't stop and get to know them. The second I changed my mindset and how to look at people and see the humanity of them and realize we all have needs, challenges, and objectives that we're trying to reach, and mine are no more important than yours or anybody else's. The second I made that turn, my entire career shifted. My entire leadership paradigm shifted, and everything I knew or thought I knew about myself changed on a dime.
Wow. Wow. Whew. I'm a little emotional hearing that too. And Kurt, I applaud you, and I really want to just hold the space for that raw honesty, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are listening to this right now, or maybe watching us, and they're going through something. They're going through something personally that is challenging them. And you discussing it in such a vulnerable, honest, open way is going to give them the strength and the courage to look at their situation and redefine it. And by that, I mean, and I took some notes here because I want to unpack just a few things that you said, is we are meaning makers in life. Anything that happens to us, we apply some sort of label or some sort of meaning on. And there's a saying, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And anyone in my community knows that I say that a lot, because we define things. You could have let that experience bring you to your knees, and you probably would be justified in doing so. That is a huge life event, and a lot of people probably would have medically retired. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But instead, you took it and you used it as fuel to drive you even further and to do even more for your family and for our war fighters and for the community and everybody outside of you. And so, my question for you would be, and I know you kind of indicated it's mindset, it's having that outward mindset, but was there some sort of habit or some sort of internal shift that enabled you to do that when the odds were against you and it was hard as hell? Was there just some mindset hack or trick or something that you did that enabled you to really harness that grit and resilience?
I don't know that there was one single mindset. I did do some Arbinger training and learned about the outward mindset. There's actually a book out there called The Outward Mindset. I highly recommend it. Fantastic book. And it's really about seeing others and seeing how you look at yourself in comparison to others, and how you might be thinking that you're doing all the right things, but really you're just getting in their way. You're causing problems, or you're not understanding where they're coming from because you haven't developed the relationship with the people around you to understand what's important to them or how you can make a difference to them. And so you fire for effect without looking at the target first, or you
Mm,
don't even care about the target. You just fire for effect thinking that you have the wisdom and knowledge to make everything go right. And a lot of times you're not helping things go right. In fact, you're maybe making things go wrong. And that applies to the leadership realm. I can't tell you. So after this event, funny or not funny, I set out to make all the rights of my, 20 years at that point, 15, 20 years of federal service right. So I tried to go back and think of all the people that I had called on Christmas when I had a drug op that needed support. And they said, sorry, it's Christmas. I'm with my family. And I said, you're dead to me. You're no longer working on any of my ops because if you can't come out and help without any thought to what their family was or what they were going through. And so the second I started to put people into the equation of my decision making and I put their needs, challenges, and desires first, everything changed because in order to put somebody else's needs, challenges, and desires first, you have to know them. You have to have a relationship because without the relationship, you can't do that. And if you don't have that, you can't get your mindset to the outward mindset. So if there was one habit that helped me was explaining all of this and going through this with my wife because I still get behind cars that drive slow and I want to honk the horn and I want to just be like, what are they doing? I think we've all been there. And then she'll just look at me and say, remember, that could be like your daughter, a brand new driver. That could be somebody who just got the worst news possible and they can't even focus on anything.
mhm.
So, how do I make their life easier? Do I need to get to where I'm going 2 minutes faster? Or do I just say, you know what? They're a person with their own needs, objectives, and challenges, and it doesn't matter what they are. Let me give them the space. And when you start doing that and you have somebody to help you, remind you, and my wife's a big reminder. In fact, I think she weaponizes this against me a little bit, but whatever. Um, that is such a help. Just having, again, you show me your five closest friends. We've all heard this, and I'll show you your future. Surrounding yourself with people who think and believe the way you believe will help establish that. Iron sharpens iron. So having those people around you, both inside and out of work, because leadership isn't just at your job, it's at your house. I tell people this all the time. You don't have to be in a leadership position to lead. You can lead up, you can lead sideways, and you can lead down. So just practicing it constantly. And I listen, it's my goal to be an outward thinker. I routinely on a daily basis fall back into an inward thinking process. I just think it's human nature. What's in it for me? What's best for me? What can I do? The nonprofit that my wife and I founded has really helped me do that because I have this theory, and it's more like a religion to me. When I do something, I say, hey, God, bless this or kill it. If this is meant to be, bless it and keep blessing it. And if it's not, kill it. And so we were able to acquire 250 acres through the grace of God. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, wait, I can make a ton of money doing this. I can. And I went right back to that old mindset about how can I help me? And there's people out there like, what are you doing? Do you know how much money you could make on this if you did this, this, and this? And it's easy to fall into that. But then when you go back to what is our purpose here? Our purpose is to help others through an outward mindset. It doesn't help others if I'm just helping myself. So really, it's just constantly practicing that outward mindset. There's no one single habit. You will daily get practice. If you leave your office today and walk out the door and think everything I'm going to do is going to be for the benefit or to help others, not necessarily to detriment of yourself, but to help others and start thinking of what needs, challenges, objectives they have, that is your basic pattern to establish the habit of always thinking outward. It is a tough job I feel daily.
Okay, so much that I want to pull the thread on. One of the things is when you talked about relationships and having that outward mindset and making sure that you know the people. And that is something that we talk a lot about in our community here is that foundation of everything is trust and respect. And it's something that we earn with each other. And from that foundation, anything is possible. And I personally am obsessed with the human potential. But like you said, everyone around you, I mean, really, they're mirrors. They're mirrors pointing back at you. And proximity truly is power. So, for anyone that's listening to Kurt right now, be taking notes because this is the good stuff in life. And I know it's not always easy because a lot of people feel stuck or, well, I'm stuck in this relationship or I'm stuck in this job. And I am here to tell you that no, you are not stuck. The only people are stuck are 6 feet under.
Right.
Problems are a gift. Problems are a gift. It's life's call to action. Time to accelerate, time to get better, stronger, leaner, and faster. Let's go. And another thing that you said is about leadership. And I am so happy that you said this because it is the essence of tactical harmony and why I started this business. And that is holistic leadership. It is self leadership first. If you can't lead yourself, if you can't influence and inspire yourself, how the hell are you going to inspire and influence those around you?
That's
It
right.
starts with yourself. It starts with your day and your relationships and how you are as a father or a wife or a sister or a brother. How do you lead your habits? How do you lead your mornings? That is leadership. And then, of course, as you work through the ranks and you have teams and maybe you are a leader in your community, that is going to reflect outwards as well. So, segue for you as we're talking about habits. I cannot wait to hear how you're going to answer this one. So, we all have things that we do that keep us operating at peak performance. And I would love to hear from you, Kurt. What is either a practice or a habit or something that you do, maybe it's daily or weekly or monthly, that keeps you sharp, that keeps you operating at peak performance?
Great question. And I like to say that habits define culture, right? And you can have a culture at work, you can have a culture within your family, you can have a culture within your friend group. And a culture is simply people who have the same values, traditions, and beliefs. And habits are a huge piece of that. So one of the things, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but when I go after something, I'm like a dog on a bone. I tackle it. And a couple years ago, I tackled nutrition. And I can't tell you how proper nutrition fuels your mind, fuels your body, and fuels your behavior towards others and yourself. We've all had that time where we eat like junk, and then all of a sudden you're grumpy, and all of a sudden you're snapping at people. Or nutrition, a big piece of nutrition is not just what you eat, but then what you do with your body afterwards. You fuel your body, you work out, what's your rest like? Are you getting a good night's sleep? All of that pays into it. So I did a deep dive, and if you go back to maybe senior or junior year in high school, the Krebs cycle, the powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria, and the mitochondria creates ATP, and that fuels your muscle. And they have this thing called what is it? I can't remember what the word is, but anyway, it's your mitochondria telling your cell they've been poisoned, and then that cell does a self destruct and recycles and builds a new cell. And if you're not fueling your body properly, especially in law enforcement, you know how it is in law enforcement. You sit around for hours, and then you have a few seconds of a tempo where all of your adrenaline is rushing through, and then you're back down, and your cortisol levels are building, and then you fuel up again, and then you're down. If you're not fueling your body properly, and that's at the mitochondrial level, then you're failing yourself at so many different levels. And you're asking for early onset Alzheimer's. You're asking for, we work hard and we retire at 55 or 60. And then 5 years later, by national averages, most cops or law enforcement people are dead. And so one of the habits that I know on one of your podcasts, you said, what's your non-negotiable? So I have a list of non-negotiables. I wouldn't do crack cocaine. I wouldn't smoke cigarettes. So why would I put soda pop in my body? Why would I put candy and sugar? Now, don't get me wrong. I love chocolate. So if there's chocolate pie, chocolate cake, chocolate ice cream, I'm going to have some.
Yeah.
But it's not an everyday thing. And I make sure that I stick to my habits of non-negotiable foods and non-negotiable activities. I stopped drinking. I was never an alcoholic. Everybody's like, oh, why don't you drink? I stopped drinking about 2.5 years ago now, and I don't miss it. You know who misses it? All of my friends or friends that I used to have that drink. The hardest thing about any of this is not necessarily doing it yourself, but everybody else asking, why don't you drink? Were you an alcoholic? Never was an alcohol, but I can have just as much fun without drinking. And slowly, the people that I've surrounded myself with, most of us are non-drinkers, and we have just as much fun as everybody who's drinking. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's kind of the paradigm that I operate in for how I stay healthy and how I stay fit mentally. Because if I fuel my body right, then everybody else gets the best of me.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely answered the question. And it really resonates with me because the mind body connection is real. And we have this temple and we need to train it, we need to fuel it, feed it, nurture it, all of the things. And it is very much connected to our mind and our mindset and our mental health. And I also believe it's connected to our spiritual health. That mind, body, spirit is this beautiful integration, and we should be feeding all three. And similar to you, yeah, listen, if there's a piece of chocolate and I want it, I'm going to eat the darn thing. But I try to do 80/20. So for the most part, I'm pretty good. I like to eat organic and have a good,
Moderation.
yeah, exactly. But if there's a piece of cake and I want it, or a piece of pizza, because I am a foodie and everyone knows that, I'm gonna eat the darn thing, right? So that's important because it keeps you clear, it keeps you focused, and then following that intuition and what feels right to you is so, so important.
I'm sorry, it just came to mind. Apoptosis. That's what your mitochondria does. It signals apoptosis. Sorry, it's driving me crazy.
Like, usually that comes to you at like 2 or 3 in the morning, but I'm
Right.
pretty damn impressed that it came to you within 2 minutes of your like, "What was that thing?"
Well, I'm going back to high school, so yeah, apoptosis. There you go.
I love it. No, I think that's incredible, and listen, the body has an innate wisdom, and the body wants to heal. I truly believe that, and that's a whole other conversation that I know you and
Yes,
I have had in the past, but the body, again, it's our temple, we should fuel it, feed it, and I think that's an amazing non-negotiable habit practice that you shared with us. So, switching gears, Kurt, I would love to know, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
my 25-year-old self wouldn't listen to me. I just like I've got a 25-year-old. I've got kids that are in that age range, and they're listening to me a little bit better now. But most of them, I know I wouldn't have listened to me. But I would say this: when you leave this earth, when you leave your job, wherever you leave, very few people are going to remember the great things you might have done at that job or the agency. But everybody will remember how you treated them. And remember that every single person that you interact with becomes an ambassador of you. And we've all done this. There's someone new coming to the office. There's someone, coming on your podcast. The first thing you want to do is, well, what kind of person are they? How are they? What do you know about them? And that conversation, and we've all heard it, can go one of two ways. They're fantastic. They're a complete a-hole. They're great, but I wouldn't trust them, right? So just remembering that everybody that you encounter is an ambassador of you, and that no one's going to really remember. Not no one. Most people will not remember the great thing you did. Nobody's going to remember any of the great documents that I signed as the executive assistant director for NCIS. All those policy paperworks, no one's going to remember the amount of money I got in, but they will remember, and they continue to remember how I treated them. And I like to think that I treated everybody pretty decent.
That's amazing. Well, I certainly remember how you treated me, and I just want to shout that out, that this is Kurt's heart talking right now, and I saw it firsthand when I was an NCIS special agent, and so your leadership was admired and respected. So I really want to hold space for that as well. And I follow my intuition, and I feel called to share this as well. And I know that I'm asking you this question, but this came through, and I want to make sure that I share it because I think someone needs to hear this right now as well. When I was a baby special agent, I was probably in my mid upper 20s, and I remember it was late one evening, and I'm just sitting there writing a death scene report, and I'm just hammering away, and there's calls coming in, just nuts, right? And I remember a senior special agent walked in. In fact, he was the senior agent in the entire agency. He had more years on than the director and anybody else. And he came up to me and he said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean? What am I doing? I'm writing my report." And I'm a hard charger. And listen, Rebecca had emotional intelligence issues back in the day. We all grow. So I'm like hot headed. I'm like, "No, I got to get my stuff done." He's like, "Rebecca, what are you doing? Go home to your family." And I was like, "Well, yeah, but I got to get this done because you and I both know there's going to be more calls in, and I'm drowning. I got to stay ahead of this." And he's like, "You are not going to appreciate this now, but you will one day." And it was one of those defining moments. And he said, "You need to go home and take care of your family. I am divorced. I'm about to retire, and I don't have anything to show for this. And I wish I would have gone home. I wish I would have spent more time with my kids and my family. Make sure that you put them first." And it just stopped me in my tracks, Kurt, because I was like, wow, I am absolutely putting my career and NCIS and everything before myself. Before, at that time, it was my boyfriend. I just put everything on the back burner. And that goes to what you said, probably my long-winded way of reinforcing what you just said, Kurt, is, yeah, no one's going to remember that I stayed till
That's
2100
right.
working on a desk. No one's going to do that. What they care about is how you made them feel, how you treat people, your family, your loved ones. And when I'm looking back at my life, the rocking chair test, I'm not going to be like, yeah, I worked so late and I'm so excited and proud of that. Yeah, I am very proud of what I did as an agent, but I'm going to be more proud of the family and the legacy and the impact and the service that I give others than I did staying late at work. So I
That's right.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
We're not telling people not to stay late at work. There are
Yeah.
times for that, right? There's certainly times that you should do that. But you're exactly right. Nobody's ever going to remember the nights you and I both stayed and collected evidence and did all those things that had to be done.
Yes.
But your family will remember when you were there and when you weren't there. And we, as in law enforcement and military and first responders, we miss so many birthdays, we miss so many Thanksgivings, anniversaries, childbirths as it is. So when you can, you got to make time for yourself, that work-life balance that's been the mainstay of NCIS for several years now.
100%. 100%. Well, switching gears now, I would like to hear about Protocol 1. Can you talk to us about it?
Absolutely. Protocol One is actually the for-profit. The nonprofit is 10-7 at Big Land. All the police officers out there know 10-7 means off duty. So 10-7 Big Land was born out of adversity for me. My wife and I decided to go ahead and start that. And it started off as, hey, we've got 250 acres. Well, it started off as 50 acres that grew to 146. And then as we looked outward, God continued to bless what we were doing. So people would come to us and say, hey, I hear what you're doing. We'd like you to have this piece of property or that piece of property. And we surrounded ourselves with a great team of first responders and law enforcement from all different walks of life and different law enforcement, federal and local. And they're part of our team now. And we're all dedicated to one thing, and that is our service members and first responders and the handicapped, giving them the opportunity to come out for no charge and make memories that they've missed. That's, if you go to our website, that's what we're about. That initial acreage turned into something much bigger than we thought it would. And initially it was, hey, come camp out here. We do motocross. You can come run. You can ride horses. You can kayak. You can fish. All of the things that entailed, you could do out there. And then we had some hunters come out. We have a group of people that would come out and hunt. And as we started looking around, some of the people that we wanted to come out, they're like, well, what's it cost? And we're like, nothing. Come out. And they're like, well, that's ridiculous. Why don't you make a for-profit? Because we would like to pay you. So then we made the for-profit Protocol One, because there's only one protocol, and that's us. Come out, and I've done a couple Instagram videos that a lot of people have made fun of me for, called forest bathing, where you go out there and there's chemicals in the woods that actually decrease stress, and that stress release, that cortisol dump, goes on for weeks after you leave. So we missed one thing though. A lot of the spouses and children wouldn't come out because we didn't have bathrooms. We had porta potties. So then we're like, hey, let's build some bathrooms. We built some bathrooms. I said, hey, you know what? It'd be nice if we could stay the night. So now we're in the process of building a residence out there that's 9,000 square feet that we call the lodge, where we can host people and they can stay overnight, and they can come and make those memories. They can have training events. So Protocol One Services is the for-profit that then feeds the nonprofit. So if somebody wants to come out and have a wedding, weddings are expensive now. Come on out, and for you, law enforcement, military, first responders, handicap, it's no charge, because we have people that come out and pay through Protocol One that allows us to offer it for others for free. That's the basic paradigm or principles that we chase through our nonprofit and the for-profit.
Wow, that is incredible. And y'all, forest bathing is real. I love forest bathing. I talk about it actually in my book, Unleashed. I talk about the many amazing benefits of forest bathing and all the lessons that our dogs teach us. And dogs do things naturally. We just have to pay attention. And one of the things is forest bathing, that like their paws are on the ground and they are grounding and they're taking up the sun and the vitamin D and all of the things that the amazing trees that God has given us in
That's
nature.
right.
So
That's right.
I want to double tap on that. Forest speeding is absolutely real. Kurt, my last question, because we're coming up on time here. My last question for you is, if our audience listens to nothing else but this one clip, what would be the one piece of advice or one message that you would like to leave them as it pertains to either leadership, mindset, or performance?
So I think I hit the apoptosis performance mitochondria piece a little too hard already. So I'll leave that off. I would say this: listen, as you're going about your daily life, whether you're dealing with your family or you're dealing with coworkers, mindset matters, because if you don't deal with your mindset and their mindset, you're going to get three things really. You're going to get resistance, you're going to get resentment, and you're going to get bitterness. And those three items will show up in other ways that you won't like. I guarantee that. So if you can, as you go about your life, think about the needs, objectives, and desires or of other individuals, and realize that just like you, they have all the same, maybe not exactly same, but everybody has those things they're trying to achieve, whether at work or at home, whether it's your kids or your coworker, whether it's your boss. Everybody's trying to achieve something. And if you can work at building relationships, and this is one of the things that Camp Pendleton, about the time you and I met, I was a special agent in charge out there. And one of the things I loved doing was just walking around the office and popping in and just talking to people. And they were like, "Oh, the Sax in here." And they were saying, I'm like, "No, what are you doing? What were you guys doing?" They're like, "Oh, we're just getting ready to do push-ups and wall sits." And I was like, "Great, let's do them." And then of course they would smoke me, and I would sit there like, why did I agree to do this? But that enabled those relationships to start. That enabled people to feel comfortable coming to me with issues and problems that we could then discuss. And once I understood what their issues and problems were, I could then get them to a place where they needed to be. If they were poor performers, we could sit down and talk like, "Hey, I noticed you're having some problems here." Instead of hammering them and bringing them down, say, "Hey, what is causing this? Because I know you can do better than this. What is causing this? Let's talk about that, and let's figure out if it's something at home, if it's something at work, if it's a personality issue. Let's talk about that and resolve that." So I think really seeing people and the humanity behind them before making snap decisions on what you think should happen to a person who did something, because we know this, right? In law enforcement doing investigations, you hear what happened and then you get the story of what actually happened, the truth. And usually there's a lot of disparity in there. So just taking the time to get to know people, understand their needs, objectives, and challenges, and then working through those with them, you will get a better work product and you'll get less resentment, less pushback, because people who are not happy where they work, they lie, hide, and fake. That's what they do. If they don't like their boss, and we've all had those bosses, we lie,
Right.
hide, and fake, right? And that is the worst matrix. So that would help you have a culture by design rather than by default. And a lot of agencies and a lot of offices across the federal government have default cultures. That's not the way, in my opinion, that we should be running any business. Defining what you want and have a culture by design through a positive outward mindset. And then one last piece, and we didn't really get in this, there's so much to talk about on it, is that positive self-talk. I hear, I walk through the office, "How are you doing today?" "Oh, it's another day, same old thing." And just turning that positive self-talk around, like, but it's another day we're here. It's another day we get to chase our dreams, work our craft, or work towards what our dreams might be. This might not be the ideal job for you, but we're going to get you there, whatever that is. So just that positive self-talk, reinforcing a mindset, and then seeing the humanity in people. I think if you can do those three things early, I wish I had done it earlier in my career. I don't think I finished telling you, but after all this anagnorsy came to me, and the peripetia, I was like, I got to fix this. So I started calling all the individuals that I had done something to, or I thought I had done something to. And it's funny because a lot of them were like, "Yeah, you did do that." And I'm like, I got to ask for your forgiveness. I was wrong and I shouldn't have done that. And a lot of them had seen the new me or the new improved me, and they were like, "I don't even remember that. I don't even remember that." But what a clear and cathartic process to go through, calling people, not just at work, but also in family, and just reaching out and saying, "You know what? I got a lot of things wrong. I need your forgiveness because I don't want to be remembered that way." And so the other thing is, and I wanted to mention this, a buddy of mine, when I was going through an event, said, um, "How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered?" And when you think about that, and he said, "Go listen to that song, Live Like You Were Dying." I think everybody's heard that song.
Bra, yes.
Love a little deeper, talk a little sweeter. I mean, ride a bull if you want to. But that, just talk a little sweeter, and I have a very harsh voice. At least that's what my wife tells me. So just reminding myself to talk a little sweeter. It doesn't hurt anything if you're nice to people. So just be kind. That's the biggest thing. Be nice, be kind.
Oh my gosh, yes, that level and depth of intentionality with the culture and having that accountability for absolutely everything, that's life goals right there. And Kurt, I cannot thank you enough for the wisdom that you just imparted and the life experiences and everything that you shared. And I know that was tough, and I can't tell you from the bottom of my heart how I appreciate it. And I know that the people that are listening, or maybe they're watching us right now, it's resonating with them and it means something. So I want to thank you so much for being here. And before we part ways, Kurt, if someone wants to reach out to you and chat about this message, or maybe they're interested in your profit or your nonprofit, where could they find you?
They can reach me at 7 at bigland.com, or they can look up protocol1services.com, and we're also on Instagram. I'd be happy to talk to anybody. I think there's a phone number, email address you can reach out to us. Happy to talk to anybody about any of these things. I love it. You can also, if you feel so inclined, to email me, leadershipkt@gmail.com.
Awesome. And I will make sure that this is all annotated in the show notes so folks know where to reach you. Again, Kurt, thank you for your time. I am so grateful for you, for your advocacy and leadership over the years. Thank you for being a part of our Tactical Harmony show.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. This has been great.